In this lesson, we are going to continue with simplifying rational numbers using order of operations. However, we are going to be dealing with rational numbers in fraction form. So if we look at this one, if we think about converting temperatures between degrees Fahrenheit to degrees Celsius, there is a formula. C equals F minus 32 divided by 1.8. C stands for the degrees in Celsius, F stands for the degrees in Fahrenheit. So in Fort Simpson, Northwest Territories, the mean temperature in December is negative 9.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Mean temperature means the average temperature. So what is this temperature in degrees Celsius? So what we can do here is we have our formula, and we are given the temperature in Fahrenheit. So we can substitute the negative 9.4 into the F spot of our formula. Now we want to use order of operations. So we need to look for brackets. There is no brackets. Now we need to look for exponents. There is no exponents. So now we do divide and multiply. Now there is one extra thing to keep in mind when we are written with a fraction bar. What we actually have, this fraction bar means divide, but we do actually have to simplify the numerator first. And then if there was anything in the denominator, we would have to simplify that as well. So even though brackets weren't shown, there is some brackets here we do need to look at. So we have to simplify up the numerator. So negative 9.4 subtract 32 gives us negative 41.4. Now we can divide that by 1.8. And we get a temperature of negative 23 degrees Celsius. So when you have a fraction bar, it does mean divide, but it doesn't fit in the division part of order of operations. It is actually the last thing you will do. You will simplify up the numerator, you will simplify up the denominator, and then you will perform the operation of division. In this last example here, might look kind of confusing, but if we really break it down and do it step by step, it's not too bad. So, brackets. If we look, the majority of the brackets there just have one fraction inside of them. So there's nothing to simplify in those ones, but in our square bracket here, we do have the operation of addition. So we are going to need to perform that operation. So I can rewrite the other parts. Now, in this one, we are going to need to find a common denominator, and that would be 12. So I'm going to multiply the first fraction by 4 over 4, so we'll get 4 over 12 plus a negative 3 over 12. So now that we have a common denominator there, we can just add the numerators together. So 4 plus a negative 3 is the same as saying 4 subtract 3, so we have 112. So we have simplified all of our brackets. There are no exponents, so now we move to division and multiplication. We have a multiplication here. Even though we don't have that times sign, when we have two brackets back to back, it means they're being multiplied together. And we have a division. So if we're moving left to right, we can do the multiplication first. Now I am going to do these in separate steps, but just so you know, because they were two parts that were separated by another operation of subtraction, you could do them at the same time. They don't overlap each other. They're two separate parts. But I will continue this doing them one at a time. So when we do the multiplication, which comes first and left to right, multiplication of fractions is just numerator times numerator. So we have negative 1 times negative 1, which is just 1. And denominator times denominator. So 2 times 2 is 4. So we'll have 1/4 minus. We've got our negative 2/3 divided by 1/12. So now we can move to our division. So I'm going to have my 1/4 minus. Now in division, there's a couple of strategies you can use. I will show this using the multiply by the reciprocal. So we're going to multiply by 12 over 1. And again, There's a couple of strategies we could go through from here. We could look and just do 2 times 12 and 3 times 1. Or we could look to see if there's any reducing right off the bat. So I do know that 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 12 4 times. So now what I'm going to have is I'm going to have 1/4 minus negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. 1 times 1 is 1. So I have negative 8 over 1. Now my last operation is subtraction. And when I'm subtracting fractions, I need to have a common denominator. So I'm going to multiply this by 4 over 4. And I'm going to have 1/4 subtract negative 32 over 4. And when we are subtracting a negative, we are actually adding. We're adding the opposite. So we are adding 32 over 4. And 1 plus 32 gives us 33 over 4. We can't simplify it. We could write it as a mixed number. 4 goes into 33 8 times with 1 left over. But you don't have to, which is why I show the or. You can leave it as improper, or you can write it as mixed. So even though that question might look like it's really confusing, break it down and do it step by step. And it's just a bunch of little operations with fractions. And you use your order of operations and you do one at a time, and you can work through it.